Now we're recording. Let's see if we also pick up my lovely image here on camera. We're here live in the studio, and I'm planning to interview someone today. Well, I was, but they so rudely canceled last minute. So basically, we have a show and a lot of time to fill and nothing to fill it with. I'm sure you're excited to hear that and ready to tune out as we speak. But I would simply like to add this one small point. I might say something amazing. I might say something that will blow your mind, and you'll miss it if you tune out. So, how about you stick with me and we'll see what happens? Maybe we'll have some fun. Maybe your mind will be blown. Um, you know, maybe it'll be not a waste of your life. So much of what we do is, isn't it? So let's give it a shot. What do you say? Anyway, welcome to the show. Um, Today, I want to talk to you about a subject that's near and dear to my heart. And I think that's the best way for us to get going here. I'm going to lean back, so please forgive the. This is how I get when I get deep in thought. You know what I mean? Today's subject is, well, it sounds corny, but the future of our children, especially our teenagers and young adults. Um, I believe many of our teenagers and young adults, besides going through the normal angst that they do in their hormonal years, are also facing a deep crisis of purpose, even at their age. They um, really don't know what they're about, and they don't believe that they have much of a future, which is a very sad thing. But they listen to the adults, they listen to the media, of course, and they listen to their peers in a kind of an echo chamber. And they're all saying the same thing, that there's no purpose to life. This is a generation that is, I think, the first generation that we've ever seen in America, which is really, to a great extent, atheist or agnostic. Um, uh, Really kind of shocked at the level of that. There is a small group of strong believers who are raised that way, and then there's many young people who have no spiritual life. So they don't have a belief system to lean on. And they feel that their future is very uncertain. They see life as being something that they can't win at outside of childhood. So they desperately want to hang on to childhood. Childhood for them is, for all its difficulties, is frankly safe. Mom and dad, or mom or dad, or whatever. This is your classic middle class scenario. Um, have been insulating them, especially this generation has been very insulated because there's been so much shock, and yet in other ways they haven't been insulated at all because they've had open access to media and the internet, and so they see things that other generations at their age simply never saw. At young ages, they see the shock of pornography. I'm not ranting against it. I'm just saying for a young person, it just can be shocking. And they see it normalized. Um, so they've grown up with a kind of a twisted impact on their concept of sexuality. They see their parents struggling, and they've during their short lifetimes, they have seen people go backwards. They've seen crisis after crisis. They've seen financial decline after financial decline in many cases. They've seen lots of setbacks and very few apparent reasons to be financially excited, unless they were lucky enough to be around someone who, you know, was entrepreneurial and energetic and making stuff happen. So, bottom line is, you have a generation of people now who are coming of age who believe they have no real future, who believe that they are doomed ultimately to be kicked out of the house, to struggle with little or no chance of getting ahead, and a strong question as to whether they'll even survive and not end up right back home begging from their parents. And of course, many of them do. In other words, there's a lot of truth to their fears. They know it. I actually saw a lot of this coming years ago. And there was a time when I was in better financial situation when I actually thought seriously about taking my children somewhere else, somewhere, if there was such a place, where the generalized attitude in society was more positive, a place that was growing, where there was a lot of optimism, where the future was bright, at least in the minds of people, because this is all in your mind, you know. I didn't want my kids raised in an environment that was an environment of decline. I don't believe the world is in decline, by the way. I believe the world is in transition, and that we're beginning a new age, which is extremely exciting and will have unbelievable implications for our future. But we're also still seeing the last gasp of the industrial age, frankly. It's been over for a long time, but its vestiges and its tentacles were so deep in our society and culture that we're still seeing its last gasps. And most of what we call society, the world, the older, more rigid, more persistent institutions, like the way our governments are designed and some of the ways that we connect, reliance on a central media, for information. That sort of thing is quickly going away, but it has still held on. And we look at that and say, oh, look at its decline. The world is declining. And, of course, that rubs off on the younger generation. So they think the world is going to shit. And they're going to ride it into the toilet. And they've had almost no opportunity to influence it, really no opportunity to influence it whatsoever. And they realize they can't stop it. They are smart enough to know that their dollars are going to be worthless, and they hear it from the smarter adults, and they don't know what to do. I mean, so they're going to go out, they're going to work really hard. Inflation's going to eat up their money. They can invest in other things if they can scrape together a few pennies, some cryptocurrency or something of that nature, but that's incredibly volatile and can be very speculative. And so in the short term, they see huge risk everywhere they look. Now, of course, the reality is where there is risk, there is opportunity. The less risk, the less opportunity, the less volatility. Those things all go together. Risk, opportunity, and volatility go together. And when you have very little of one, you usually have very little of the other two as well. So, and there are periods over time in which you have both. We're at a time of transition, which means we're in a time of great risk, great opportunity, and great volatility. That's okay, you know. Once you accept that and understand it and learn how to address it and realize that you're going to have to do a lot of work, but that your work can be hugely rewarded. It's just you'll probably fail a lot too. It requires an entirely new set of attitudes and perspective about how you approach life than than those set of attitudes and perspectives that served the older generation that's still hanging around because they're living so long. They were risk averse to a great extent. They Whereas you can't be risk averse in this world because things are too impermanent. So you have to take chances, and you have to expect to fail more often than you succeed, but understand that you can gain greatly when you do succeed, and make up for the losses. You have to educate yourself a lot in this age, and a lot of that education has a limited shelf life value. It's perishable, so you have to constantly re-educate yourself. Where there was a time in the past where you go to school, you learn certain information, and then you stop going to school and you use that information for the rest of your life in a career of some sort. Those days are not here. They will return, by the way. This all happens cyclically, and there will be a time like that most likely in our future. But we're not in that time. So we just have to adjust. And more importantly, and I speak of we, I speak of those of us who influence younger people, who can help to guide them in some way, who can give them hope. We have to help bring this insight, this perspective into where we are, where we're going, and the kind of outlook and viewpoint and attitude that young people need to have today. We can bring this to them and give them hope, give them direction, so that their approach to life can change, can hopefully be more playful, more excited, less worried, less concerned about failure. In fact, they could possibly learn to celebrate failure as a sign that you're kicking ass trying, and just keep it up. You'll get there. So we can be supportive of each other in our failures. Terms like loser just don't have a place in our society. The only real losers are people who, well, never try. That's the truth. So this is something I'm concerned about. This fear in our generation, in our coming of age generation today. Teens, 20s, some of them are still in the 30s. Who knows? Who are lost and who are scared or have given up. Possibly even some of the younger ones have given up and lost themselves in drugs or God knows what, because they see no hope, no future. There are many people who won't have children today because they think the world sucks and it's going to hell. And this is all based on the attitude that the world's coming to an end, in a sense, that the world is dying. But it's not their world. It's their elders' world that's dying. Their world is being born. And those of us who can see that need to show them and convince them so that they can begin to take on a new attitude and a better quality of life for themselves and to build the future for themselves. Frankly, it's the future for their children and their children's children. Typically, this goes 4 generations, I think 4 generations. They're the first in the cycle of a 4-generation cycle. My generation was basically the last. I was on the edge of they call the boomers and the Gen Xers. And I always claimed to be a Gen X because I jumped into technology and computers, and so I am a Gen X. Gen X was the last in a cycle of 4 generations. It was the last generation of the industrial age. And it oversaw the decline and destruction of the industrial age. The boomers were at the peak, really, and began. They lived at the peak of the industrial age, and saw at the beginning of its decline, but it's probably peaked in 1950s in the States, and that's what you know that's the world they knew. This new generation is a part of the first generation of, I guess it's the information age, and they will be building the basic infrastructure, they already are, of a new age, while dealing with the tentacles, the dying tentacles of the old industrial age that are refusing to let go because people are trying to squeeze them for every bit of profit they can, as long as they can. The problem is that the longer that these old tentacles of the industrial age hang on, these weights, these old ways of doing things, these old systems, the longer we delay the development and growth of the information age that's going to feed our future, the longer we put off the ability of the new generations to actually enjoy life. And rather than allowing the last of the old generation to be a persistent and perpetual burden on them, on this new generation. So this is giving you some perspective on where my thoughts are and what I think is a major problem, and something that I'm thinking about addressing, trying to begin talking about it and talking about what we can do to address this, to start with, this fear, this depression, this ignorance, really, among this new generation of the real future that's ahead of them, to open their eyes to what's possible and, in fact, to what's likely in their future, and to overcome this message that they have learned in their new lives, that is that they are simply, dead weights in a world that doesn't need them, and that they have no future. That message needs to be overcome with the real message. This is not empty optimism. This is reality, that they are on the edge of an amazing future, which is going to be really a wonderful time for humanity. Living in a cleaner world, a lighter world, a faster world, a more pleasant world for the most part, a world in which it will be possible to gain higher levels of self-awareness and enlightenment, and to work on higher levels of Maslow's hierarchy in our lives, as opposed to spending so much time simply trying to feed ourselves and survive and supply ourselves with the basic necessities. We have it within our power to meet those needs without too much difficulty, frankly, unless we intentionally sabotage ourselves because we're bored or confused and don't know what else to do. And I think to some extent that's what we do today. We make our lives harder, almost on purpose, because we don't know what else the hell to do and we're bored. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to do this test recording. I checked the sound. I know there's an echo and there's a buzz, but I thought I'd give it a try. And then there might be a video component to this of me in a corner, but that's just, it's all a test. So, by the way, this is not my good microphone. Oh, excuse me, this is not my good camera that I'm using. This is just the camera on my my MacBook Air. I have a high-end camera that I haven't taken out of the box yet. I don't even know where it is, but that I'll give a try later. Okay, thanks a lot, and I'm going to check this out and see how it looks.